here's the file. It's called clipping um, snake. And there's a folder here called start here. And there's a folder called sample. And so we're not going to work on this sample. That's just for you to refer to. And so we're going to work on the start here folder. And so there's also in paths, I've got a path for you. And so I'm going to go to the start here. And I've got a layer called snake type. And so I've got this type here that says, I'm going to take this type here that just not the S part, but just the part that says, see, this is two separate layers. The snake slithers silently, stealthily. I can just double click that. And you see it will select. I just double click here. I'm just going to hit X, Command X. I just cut it. So it's not there anymore. I'm going to go to my paths here. And look, I've got a path. And I can adjust that path if I want. I can click and see I've got anchors. And I can move it around if I want. And I'm going to get the type tool, T for type. And in the type tool, I can come over here. And when I click on it, it's going to automatically recognize this is a path. And it's going to turn into the type on a path tool. And it's got this little curve to it. And I already have that. I cut that type. So it's on my clipboard. I'll click. And it substitutes lorem ipsum for a minute here, but I'll just hit Command or Control V, paste, and there we go. It says snake slithers silently, stealthily. And so there we go. And I've got that type there. And I just hit the letter A here, the pen tool. And now when I come to the front of this, you see I got this little cursor that's like the type tool, and there's a little right arrow. And that's going to move the type along this path. See, as I move it along, it's going to flow along that path. If I pull down, it's going to flip it to the bottom if I pull up. And so that's kind of fun. And I'm going to just move it along to about there. If I want to this is a vector path tool here. This first one will move the whole path. See, if I click that, it's going to move that whole path and the type on it. The second one, this direct selection tool, it can move an individual anchor point. I can click one anchor point and move it. I could click a handle and maybe adjust the curve a little if I want to do that. And I'm probably pretty fine. You can nudge that if you want it to be a little a little more flat, a little one way or the other. I'm pretty happy with that. So that's fine. I'm happy with that. Next thing, I'm going to go back to my layers, and I'm going to get this S here. And I'm going to move that S up here. I'm going to do a warp on that S. And on my layers here, I actually have on this is sample here. I have the a warp on it. And you can see that if I double click it, it'll tell you what the warp is. And the warp's right up here. And you can see I've got a warp style, and it's a plus 50, plus 70, minus 7. 50, 70, minus 7. And so, again, I'm not going to cheat and I'm going to just hit cancel, 50, 77. And so I'm going to hide my sample. And I'm going to go back to my snake type. And I'm going to do that to the S I have here. So I'll click it. And I'm going to go. I'll click it. Up here on the top, So I just double clicked it to select it. Appears the type and the type warp. And I'll go to arc. And I'm going to plus 50. And you see what that did? And there's all sorts of different ones here. Here's fish. But I want just a simple warp. And I'm going to do plus 50 and plus 70. And you can play around with it. But I found that to do a um, pretty good snake. Okay. And then I'll get my move tool here and I'll move that. I think that's a pretty good snake head. I'm seeing this as the snake's mouth and probably needs a fang, but I could probably move one of these. Maybe I should have done that, but I didn't. It'll probably be lame looking. Anyway, so I've got my snake type there. That's pretty fun. And so probably I, at this point, should save this. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and I'll name this last name, Dennis, first name, Alan, clipping snake, and I'll do the 6-digit date. And so today's date is 07/03/24 and save it. Okay. And so now that was fun. I've got my type doing what I want. And I'm going to do, I'm going to just make a layer above that. And it's time to do some fun coloring. And so I'm going to start with maybe something red. And so I'm going to hit B for brush and red. And got a huge brush. And so I'm going to just hit the left bracket and I'll just click and I'm going to give this guy some polka dots on him. He's got the measles. I'll make some smaller polka dots here. I'm just on this layer, and I'll just call this layer color. Dots. And I'm just doing some dots here all along, just because why? Because it's fun. And I'll make a left bracket, go a little smaller. Left bracket, a little smaller. Left bracket, a little smaller. I'm going to go all along this. I'm going to go spacebar, command, and zoom up a little bit. Left bracket to get a smaller brush. I want some of these dots on every single letter. Some of them just a little bit on them, and some of them totally on them. I'm not being too careful to totally paint in the lines. Okay, that was fun. And maybe I want to do yellow dots now. And I think I'll do those like inside because it's fun. And they don't have to be exactly inside. In fact, on the contrary, that would be boring. So, I mean, not exactly centered. So some of center-ish, some of off-centered. And then hold just the space bar when I'm ready to move. So I can zoom in When I get close to the edge, space bar to move over. Now I want to go bigger bracket, right bracket to get a bigger brush. Right bracket for a bigger brush. Right bracket again for a bigger brush. Right bracket again. Right bracket again for a bigger brush. So that's pretty fun. Then I'm going to do, that was too big. Left bracket, smaller. Okay, so I got a spotty guy there. We'll make another layer here below the color dots. I'm going to call this lines. And I'm going to still use the brush, but I'm going to make some, I think some blue lines here. That's pretty blue. And I'll just going to draw some blue lines over my type. And I'm going to do some green lines. More green yellow, kind of chartreuse color here. And left bracket for smaller, just some scribbly lines. Smaller brush now. I'm getting to smaller area. Oh, I got some type I can see here. I'm gonna cover up all that type. And what other color? I think some tan color would be pretty here. Something like that. I'm gonna just get rid of all that black type. I'm gonna cover it up totally where I can't see it at all. Get a smaller brush. I'm just going to come in with a small brush and just come in and do some more scribbles. And then I got some areas that I'm still seeing some of that. So I'll just come in and scribble in those areas where I'm seeing some of that black type. So I don't want any black type. And I think I'll do one more color. I think I'll get some orange in there just because why not? Maybe some yellow instead of orange. I already had yellow, a little orange. Then I'll be done. Okay, and that'll be just some. Oh boy, I got yellow all the way up here, and then I went the other direction. Okay, man, nobody taught me to paint within the lines. Okay, well that's boy, I sure messed this up. Um, and I'm going to collapse these two layers into each other, I decided. Um, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Hey, look what I just did. Um, Remember, I couldn't see my type because it was all covered up. I just made a clipping mask. So I had this start here, and I changed the start here into snake type, except I can't spell snake type. And right here where it says lines, I held the Option or Alt key if I'm on a PC. And if you look over in my layers panel, I'll move my layers panel over here so you can see it a little bit better. And so where my snake type is, it used to be called Smart Start here. I'm going to hover right between lines and my snake type line. If I'm on a PC, I'll hold Alt. If I'm on a Mac, I'll hold Option. And you see I get this little right and downward pointing arrow. That's going to be a clipping mask as soon as I click. And what it does is it clipped all of those line stuff to that layer beneath it. I've got these colored dots. I'm going to clip those to that layer as well. There you go. And so those are clipped to that too. So now I could come back to this lines layer, whatever I draw on that lines layer. So let's say I want to do some more orange stuff. I'll draw on this lines layer, some thicker lines. So I don't even have to worry about drawing outside of the lines. It's just going to I can draw more dots in here. It's going to if I unclip it, see whatever I draw here, if I reclip it, that doesn't show up. Of course, I unclipped it. It also unclipped that one. So then I reclip it. Of course, that's clipped up to this area too. So I could do have a problem with that. So that's a little problematic. So I'd have to get rid of that type. So get rid of that type. Anyway, so that's fun. And wouldn't it be neat if you could do more than just clip drawing to that stuff? Wouldn't it be neat if you could clip like a photo to that as well? So yes, you can. So I'm going to open a file, and in our images, we had some snake scales. So I'm going to open that image, open with Photoshop. We have the snake scales. I'll call this snake. And I'm going to drag that over and into this. And look what we got there. And that just automatically became a clipping mask. Why? Because I dragged it in between these layers. Actually, I wasn't planning that. It just happened. And it actually scaled over here. I didn't really even want that. I'm going to pull that out of there. And I'm going to break that clipping mask. So there's that. And so I break it by, if I option click, it becomes a clipping mask. Option or alt click. If I do the same thing, it will become a clipping mask. So I'm gonna scale that. Command T, Control T, and if I scale, I always have to hold the Shift key so I don't distort. Actually, in this case, it really doesn't matter if I distort this artwork. I just want the word. Strikes to be a clipping mask. So I'm going to do that. So I'll clip that as well. So there we go. And wonder what if I had that all in a group there. That's a big mess. Can I clip a whole group to the layer below it? And answer is no, not really. I could turn it into a smart if I turned it into a clipping group. I wouldn't do that though, because then you won't be able to edit it as well. I could turn it into a smart object and clip it, but I'm not going to do that. So, I'm not going to put it into a group, but I can clip all those things to it. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do, so I got snake stripes. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna make another layer. I'm gonna call this layer fangs. And I'm just gonna get B for brush, and I'm going to get some blood here. And with my brush tool, B for brush tool, just going to, oh, that's not the blood. I'm just going to paint some blood, paint some blood. And then I'm going to get a soft brush. So up here's my brushes. And I'm just going to get a soft brush here, soft round. And I'll get a darker brush, a darker blood color, like here. That's a good dark blood color. I'm going to paint, I'll zoom up so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to paint out here. Look, I'm painting right here. You don't see anything, right? Oh, yeah, right now I'm making a big mistake. I'm painting on the snake scales. I'm destructively editing right now. Oops, look where I'm painting. That was lame. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to get smarter. I'm going to make a layer called blood here. Fangs. I'll call it fangs. There we go. And I'll clip that and work smarter. Try again. Um, so um, there's my blood. And so I did the dark blood first. I'll go over here, do the dark blood. And then I'll come in, I'll get some lighter blood here, lighter blood. And I'll just come in and so there's some lighter blood. There's some lighter blood. That's working. If I wanted even darker blood, I'll eyedrop here on this darker blood. And I could say, all right, even darker blood on the outer edge, B for brush. And I could come here and paint on the outer edge like that. And I'm just barely kissing the edge of this. If I undo that clipping mask, you can see I'm painting clear out here, but it's just doing that edge. So that's the neat thing about clipping mask. I'm mostly painting outside the lines, but when I come in, so I'm painting clear out here, but I'm getting a really soft feather in where I'm painting here because most of the paint's out here. So the clipping mask, pretty cool stuff. Then I want to come in here and I want to paint some maybe bone color here. So I'll come here and say, all right, let's get some nice kind of cream color here or like a bone color and just paint some bone color here for the fangs. And then some lighter. And I'll make my brush smaller. Really like that. And at this point, probably I'd want to maybe knock my opacity down. Think about doing this when you knock your brush opacity down. Most of the time I forget to bring it back up and then I wonder what's going wrong with my brush now. And then I have to go, oh yeah, I'd knocked my opacity down and I have to remember to bring it back up. So um but it works nice. You get a but usually when I want to do this sort of thing, I don't have my Wacom tablet out right now, but um I usually do this sort of work with my tablet, so then I can use pressure sensitivity and I don't have to knock my brush opacity down. But so there I'm getting some nice opacity, come back in, get some more. Maybe I knock my opacity back up a little bit to get some stronger highlight, like here. And then maybe go clear to full opacity, because mostly the reason to get full opacity is I don't want my brush at zero opacity anymore. And then maybe come in with some even more like full on white here, just to get some nice fang white. There we go. Nice bright highlight, maybe a little bit here. There we go. And a little more highlight over here. Now that I have full highlight. There we go. I got some nice, yeah, probably that last little bit was too much, but anyway. Got some nice fang. Last thing I'm going to do here is, oh, I think on my other one, I put some gold on the bottom. I could do that too. But I think last thing I'm going to do is just put a background on it. I've got some grass. I'm going to open that in Photoshop. And this is grass. And I don't think it quite fits um, the image. Um, so, um, and if I stretch it, actually it's gonna not be terrible in this instance. So usually I'm really kind of negative on stretching images, but this is one where it's not the worst thing if you stretch this image. And so I'll stretch that and I'm going to bring that all the way to the bottom. But now I got a problem. I can't read my image anymore. So got a couple of things you could do. You could maybe um, lighten your image in the background, but I need to do some other stuff to get my type to be more readable. And so I'm going to take my snake type here and I'm going to do some effects. And I'll probably do some stuff with the background as well. So I'm going to take my layer here, that snake type, and down here I have some FX. And I'm going to play with those. I'm going to go to bevel and emboss. And ooh, already that does some fun stuff. And I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to do an inner bevel. I'm going to go to chisel hard. What's that going to do? And I'm going to go to size. Well, I'm going to just stay soft for now, smooth. I'm going to go depth and see what happens. Go a little higher depth or the size. Ooh, look at that's doing. Size, less depth. So that's, and you see it gets kind of wonky because the type's getting smaller. It's working better here. I'm going to go to chisel hard and I get kind of a nice chisel effect. That's kind of fun. I've got a really strong shadow mode. I can change the highlight. The shadow opacity is clear to 100%. Maybe I don't want that to be 100%. I'm going to change that to like 75%. So that's reading a little bit better. The depth, I think I like the more depth. I went to like 220. That's reading pretty well. Softens, gonna make it more balloony. I want it hard because it's a chisel hard. See what happens when you hit down versus up, what it's doing with the light. It just changes the light direction. I actually like the up. Um, yeah, I like that one. That's pretty good. The screen, this is a soft light. What if I want it to be a brighter light, like a yellow? You see what that does? I actually had liked where it was before, like a more cream. So I'm going to go to that where I currently was. Okay, so I can change those light sources. Um, I don't have to have a black shadow, although black's kind of working well. And then what else could I do? I could put a drop shadow. What's a drop shadow going to do? When I do drop shadow, I got to click on that. I can actually move um, see the drop shadow on or off. That's helping a little bit. I think I'll keep that on. And so that's helping a little bit. And what else could I do? I might now say, what if I take my background layer here and what if it is a lower opacity? Yeah, and that's going to help. So I'm just going to knock the opacity down on the background. And I went to like a 50%, and that's working well. And park that back over where it belongs. And that's my final answer. I'm not as happy with what the happy with as happy with my fangs now, but I'll live with it. I don't like if I decide I didn't want my fangs doing that, let's say, I could just take in the snake type here where it says strikes, and let's say I want to do that. I could just take the snake type out of that to where they're not doing that anymore. But then I would want to probably go back and get them some I think some drop shadow on that as well, probably, because I think it's um yeah, I think it needs some drop shadow. So it reads a little bit better. I didn't like the chisel on the fangs. They didn't look as good. Um yeah. And I think that's my final answer. So I did have some gold leaf you could put on your snake as well. I didn't want it on this one, but that's clipping mask. And clipping masks are a way to um, just paint something um, to that will clip just to what's you mask it to just what's on the layer beneath it. If what's underneath it goes away, what's above it goes away. If you undo the mask, you just in this case you just got scribbles. But then when you um, and then you can stack the mask like I've done here. I've got more than one layer masked. If you undo the lower mask, it breaks the higher mask. And then um, again, if you decide to paint, on the higher mask, like this color dots, by paint on the higher mask, it just it just paints again on the it still clips to the mask below it. Anyway, that's clipping masks. It should be useful for you on your move poster title. All right, that's my lecture for today. Any questions? All right, have fun. Photoshop is fun.